At 8:30 a.m., I was looking out and saw 4 Germans leave their trenches and come toward us. I told 2 of my men to go and meet them, unarmed, as the Germans were unarmed, and see to it that they did not pass the halfway line. We were 350 to 400 yards apart at this time. My fellows were not very keen, not knowing what was up, so I went out alone and met Barry, one of our ensigns, also coming out from another part of the line. By the time we got, they were 3/4 of the way over, and much too near our barbed wire, so I moved them back. They were 3 private soldiers and a stretcher-bearer, and their spokesman started off by saying that he thought it only right to come over and wish us a happy Christmas, and trusted us implicitly to keep the truce. He came from Suffolk, where he had left his best girl and 3.5 horsepower motorbike. He told me that he could not get a letter to the girl, and wanted to send one through me. I made him write out a postcard, in English, in front of me, and I sent it off that night. We then entered on a long discussion on every sort of thing. I was dressed in an old stocking cap and a man's overcoat, and they took me for a corporal, a thing which I did not discourage, as I had an eye to going as near their lines as possible. I asked them what orders they had from their officers as to coming over to us, and they said none. They'd just come over out of goodwill. I kept it up for half an hour and then escorted them back as far as their barbed wire, having a jolly good look round all the time, and picking up various little bits of information which I had not had an opportunity of doing under fire. I left instructions with them that if any of them came out later, they must not come over the halfway line, and appointed a ditch as the meeting place. We parted after an exchange of Albany cigarettes and German cigars, and I went straight to HQ to report. On my return at 10 a.m., I was surprised to hear a hell of a din going on, and not a single man in my trenches. They were completely denuded, against my orders, and nothing lived. I heard strains of Tipperary floating down the breeze, swiftly followed by a tremendous burst of Deutschland über alles, and, as I got to my own company headquarters dugout, I saw, to my amazement, not only a crowd of about 150 British and Germans at the halfway house at which I had appointed opposite my lines, but 6 or 7 such crowds, all the way down our lines, extending towards the 8th Division on our right. Meanwhile, Scots and Huns were fraternizing in the most genuine possible manner. Every sort of souvenir was exchanged, addresses given and received, photos of families shown, etc. The Border Regiment was occupying this section on Christmas Day, and Giles Loder, our adjutant, went down there with a party that morning on hearing of the friendly demonstrations in front of my company, to see if he could come to an agreement about our dead, who were still lying out between the trenches. The trenches are so close at this point that of course each side had to be far stricter. Well, he found an extremely pleasant and superior stamp of German officer who arranged to bring all our dead to the halfway line. We took them over there, and buried 29 exactly halfway between the 2 lines. They apparently treated our prisoners well, and did all they could for our wounded. When George heard of it, he went down to that section and talked to the nice officer and gave him a scarf. That same evening a German orderly came to the halfway line and brought a pair of warm, woolly gloves as a present in return for George's.